Welcome, everybody, back to another 2023 NFL Draft Special here with your host, Landon Oliver, and my co host, Jack Guiley. We are transitioning into our last week now. We only have four positions left, two of which we will cover tonight, but we are almost 1 week away from the NFL draft. It's right here upon us. We're super excited to be doing this. Tonight's episode, if you did not catch the description or whatever, we are going to be hitting on linebackers and running backs. As we know, Chris Ballard loves to draft him some linebackers just about every year. And with the loss of Bobby Okereke, this could be a position that we could really look forward to seeing. First off, though, I want to ask Jack, how you doing, man?
Doing great. Again, just been running around all day, just got out of practice, and here we are doing a show. One of my favorite things to do, kind of concludes my day. So very excited to be talking about some linebackers and running backs here that could be potential fits for the Colts.
Yeah, well, there are a lot of guys, and there's a lot of guys to like in this class as well. And a lot of very fast, rangy guys. Maybe don't have the size, but as we've seen with multiple positions, as we've kind of covered, these guys are just keep getting faster and faster every year, and that really kind of plays into what Chris Ballard really likes to look for whenever it comes to linebackers. These really fast, rangy guys sometimes come from smaller schools. So we'll cover a few of those guys, but just want to get your opinion. How do you kind of view this linebacker class?
Yeah, well, you said it, especially some of the guys we're looking at tonight. There's a lot of really athletic linebackers in this class, especially at the top of the class. There's nobody that's going to be, the very top of the first round. Got guys like Drew Sanders out of Arkansas who could potentially be first round picks, but there's nobody that's going to be really a standout, especially when you're talking an off the ball linebacker. Some people might classify guys like Will Anderson as a 3-4 outside linebacker, but we're talking more about the stand-up linebackers, guys that play the same position as like Darius Leonard. They're playing Mike and Will. But yeah, for this class, there's a lot of really athletic guys. There's just no standouts. But I like the depth of this class, and I think that they could have a lot of productive people come into the league.
Yeah, for sure. So let's go ahead and, like we preface it with every episode, these aren't necessarily the guys that are going to be going in round one, round two, maybe even. Which really there's not many linebackers in this class that you would probably draft in round one, if I'm being honest. But there is some pretty decent depth there. So we're probably looking more on your, third, fourth, fifth round type of guys. And so we're going to preface that by saying, don't be expecting us to come out, and give, top 20, top 30 players in this, just because we don't really think either one of these positions is going to be drafted very early for the Colts. This could be more of a day three type of selection on both of these positions if they go that route.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if the Colts were to draft somebody here at the linebacker position just to start off, it would probably be a guy that comes in and they're looking to contribute on special teams immediately. It's probably going to be a day three pick. I think they believe that they have guys on the roster that can step up and fill that hole that Bobby Okereke kind of left when he went to the Giants. So I'm not expecting, a day two player to be drafted here by the Colts. But, we've seen guys get drafted later that, linebacker is one of those positions where you can draft guys later and find starters, even undrafted guys sometimes, come into the league. And then they, bide their time on special teams and eventually they make a living as a starting linebacker. So, the Colts, they've always had some pretty good linebacker play, at least in the past couple of years under Chris Ballard. So we will see if they end up getting a guy that steps in and eventually becomes that next starting linebacker that kind of fills the role that Okereke left.
Yeah, and so let's go ahead. Let's get into our linebacker prospects. We have 5 guys to keep an eye out for each position, that is linebacker and running backs. This is not outside linebacker, which we would have covered in the edge class as well. So this is strictly more of your 4-3, 3-4 inside linebacker types. And like you were saying, are some guys that they do hold special teams value, and we've really seen that kind of play off with the Colts, with EJ Speed, with Zaire Franklin. Both of those guys made their names on special teams. Now they're a very integral part of a unit. So we expect that trend to continue. Let's get started off with a guy, though, that I really like, just from the aspect of how athletic, doesn't have great height, but I think he's got really good arm length, but he's extremely, extremely quick and fast and very powerful as well. And that is Owen Hapo from the University of Auburn. 6 foot 225, and he ranked number one out of all linebackers at the combine here. He ran a 4.3940 as a linebacker. That's pretty freaky. As well as a 1.5 10-yard split and 29 bench press reps as well. So just very well put together and very impressive athletic testing numbers.
Yeah, and one thing about Owen Popo is that while he was at Auburn, he didn't really have that impact production a lot of guys were looking for. So you might look at all of his athleticism, the fact he's got good speed and really long arms, he's got an impressive build, and just say, why isn't this guy going to be drafted in the higher rounds? And really just because of lack of instinct and playmaking during his time at Auburn. So what to me that screams is we're going to have a day 3 player here who, can come in and, you don't have to have a whole lot of instincts when it comes to special teams. It's more see ball, get ball. So, while he's learning to play the linebacker position at the NFL level, he can be flying down with that 4.39 speed and making some plays on kickoff, kick return, and all of those type of things.
Yeah, and really something else that really stands out when you look into him is just the high character he holds as well. He was a 2-time team captain as well there. And I know that's going to automatically kind of vault him up the Colts board just because they love those team captains, those high character guys that are going to come in and work. And he has that type of profile with his athletic testing numbers.
Yeah. Again, as we've said a few times already, this guy's very athletic, very good at like dropping into zones. He knows where to go. All that during that time when he's in pass coverage, he's always reading the quarterback's eyes, trying to figure out where he's going to drop the ball off so that he can either go make a tackle or maybe step in front and make an interception. Just the one thing that he's really going to have to work on, and not something that he can. Especially with his height now, but he might need to add a little bit of weight. That might determine, if he ends up being or stays as fast as he currently is. But he's just not really going to be big enough to play, in the interior. He's probably never going to be a, 3-down stack linebacker just because he is smaller and doesn't weigh as much. So he'll easily get, blocked by guards, and it'll be very hard for him to get off of those just because he is smaller and plays with a smaller frame. Those big guys, once they get hands on him, it's really hard for him to stack and shed. But with the long arms, that does help him a little bit, I believe, in that department. But we'll just have to see. He has to develop better instincts, like I said, to be able to become a linebacker who plays actually and gets on the field in the on the defensive side of the ball.
Right. So there is a play I have pulled up here. Sorry, we don't have our normal plays. We're having some technical difficulties, but I was able to still get you guys some plays so you can see these guys live in action. And this is a play from Owen Popo where you can really kind of see the athleticism shine. This is him making a tackle in the backfield here. Pretty impressive stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and get that shared here, and we'll go ahead and play it. And so you can kind of see him lined up there at the linebacker position right here, there in the middle. And he is booking.
Yeah. So here we see that he actually is probably lined up. His responsibility is to back out here in this situation. And so he sees the back flare and he immediately goes and gets him. So, see ball, get ball, same type of thing. He knows his assignment. He's able to, go through space, and making a play like that in space is a very difficult thing to do. You have to be very athletic to do that, especially with how twitchy a lot of offensive guys are, especially backs this day and age. It's not a piece of cake to, have that much space around you and be able to bring a guy down. So the fact he's able to do that here when the guy tries to put a spin move on him is very impressive, and something that bodes well for him on special teams because a lot of that, again, comes down to making plays in space.
Yeah. So when where are you you said you were kind of projecting him as a day 3 guy, that 5th, 6th round?
Yeah, I would say, anywhere between 4 and 6. There are some teams that may have him graded higher as a day 2 player just because of his athleticism. However, I don't think they would ever see him as a 3-down linebacker unless he's in a specific scheme where they play with a lot of smaller linebackers. So, I'm not 100% sure if any team will do that, but it wouldn't completely surprise me just because of how athletic he is. But I think a lot of teams are going to look at him as a day 1 contributor on special teams.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And there's always room for those type of players. So now let's get into another one here that we're really excited about, and that is the University of Tulane linebacker Dorian Williams. He's a guy that I got a chance to see up close here at the Senior Bowl, and he just really had a great week as well down there. He was flying all over the field. Another guy that is a little undersized, especially in the weight class. You're not going to see him really play with strength, but just the speed and the instincts that he has are something that really allowed him to shine down there in Mobile this year.
Yeah, the thing with Dorian Williams is really what you're going to see here is kind of the same, pros and cons that we said with Owen Popo. He's a really lanky guy. He plays kind of like a big box safety, honestly, a little bit like Divine Diablo out of Virginia Tech a few years ago, who originally went to the Raiders. But kind of just the same issues pop up when you are, 228 trying to play stack linebacker, and that is that if guards get on you, you're going to have a hard time getting off. But again, a really athletic player who does a really good job dropping into his zones and identifying, who to run with. He can run with tight ends and receivers. Very athletic guy. Like we said, again, ran a 4.49 40. Also a team captain at Tulane. So that's something else that I think Chris Ballard will really like. And this is really a player that I do think Chris Ballard will be reminded of, like probably Shaquille Leonard, just because, they both have extremely long, lanky arms. Williams is actually a South Carolina native. So just, it's reminiscent of Darius Leonard or Shaquille Leonard there. So, maybe that's a day 3 guy that Chris Ballard really loves.
Yeah, and something that's really impressive too with him is although he lacks size, I think that he plays the game with just like this ferocity to where he's able to put really big hits on people. And that's not generally something you see from a guy that size. So I think as he gets into an NFL strength and conditioning program that allows him to build a little more muscle, put on hopefully 10 to 15 more pounds, I really think you could see him develop into not necessarily a 3-down guy, but just somebody you can put out there. And I think he plays the run game really strong as well.
Yeah, I think he does a good job of identifying run lanes and kind of just getting over and filling. He's a great tackler, especially when he gets there. Again, it's just, are you going to be able to keep blockers off of him in space? Because that's going to be an issue for him. If he's trying to come downhill and you've got guards coming at him. But if you play in a scheme where you have gap block eating defensive tackles that take up a lot of gaps, it's going to be easier for him to kind of sift through all of that garbage and go and make a play on a running back.
Yeah, for sure. So we actually have a play here that kind of highlights that. I was able to run through and find here. And it's pretty much exactly what you were talking about. And it's, he comes in and he really kind of sifts through that traffic and makes, a great play in the lane and makes a great tackle here. So you can kind of see him. He is lined up right here as your middle linebacker. And yeah, you can really see him kind of sort through all that mess here.
Yeah, and especially making that tackle on he made Deuce Vaughn miss there and made tackle on a shifty guy and Adrian Martinez. But yeah, he avoids kind of that pulling guard who decides to block somebody else and leaves him unaccounted for. And again, this looks like this should be a really easy play. I can promise you this is a very difficult play. He's having to avoid a blocker, even though it is a smaller guy in Deuce Vaughn, and still make that play in the open. If he whiffs there, that's, a first down and maybe, 15, 20 yards, just because the next closest guy is that safety there, number 23. So just his ability to wrap up and finish plays is something that, I think will translate very well into the NFL. A guy that can finish tackling a lot is somebody that teams are going to want to take a chance on in the draft.
Yeah, absolutely. So now let's get on to another guy here, a guy that has kind of been tied to the Colts a little bit. You've kind of seen a lot of mock drafts have them landing this next player, and that is Ivan Pace Jr. out of Cincinnati, another Cincinnati tie there with the Colts. And we know they do like players from that program for sure. So what's kind of your read on where he is? Because he's kind of like in the middle of kind of everybody, it seems like.
Yeah, so the first time I heard about Ivan Pace was actually listening to a PFF podcast back earlier in the middle of the season. And they said this little guy who transferred in from Miami, Ohio, which is actually from around where I'm from, he is going to Cincinnati, and he's 5'11", he's under 6 foot, and he doesn't weigh very much, and he's going in there, he's getting all these pressures, and Cincinnati just kind of uses him to go sprint through gaps and get a bunch of these pressures. And he's one of the most disruptive players in this class. Again, he's just not going to go very high because of his measurables in terms of like his size and weight, which again, as we've talked about, it's kind of the same deal with Popo. But this guy plays so hard. Like, this guy will come in and immediately, again, I've said this with all three of these guys, day one impact on special teams. But this guy, I mean, he could be like George Odom level impact. Thinking first team all pro special teamer possibly on, when he walks in first year, just because of the level of, effort he puts in on every play and just how disruptive he is whenever he's on the field. This is a guy I want to put kind of at the edge on like kickoff or field goal block, just because he goes so hard and he just has a knack for getting through blocks. He is able to create natural leverage because he is smaller. And so it's hard for, tackles and guards to get their hands on him. So, Ivan Pace is really an interesting player, and we could see if this prototype might be able to gain some more traction at the linebacker position in the NFL.
Yeah, and this was actually another Senior Bowl guy as well. So we were able to see him down in Mobile. Like you said, very undersized. It's very odd to see a linebacker at his. I believe he was under 5'11". I think he was around 5'10" and a half. So that's pretty odd for a linebacker at that size, and especially going into the NFL. So you have to wonder if that possibly holds him back a little bit. But as you were saying, very instinctual. He has an ability to always seem to be around the ball. And a lot of guys, I mean, even Darius or Shaquille Leonard, my bad. Shaquille Leonard.
We're all still doing it.
Yeah, I know everybody does it. It's just it's taken a long time to get used to. But it's just sort of an innate ability that guys like that have that you can't really teach. I mean, they're just in the right place at the right time, and they just know how to make plays. And that's, even for his size or lack thereof, he's just a guy that's consistently going out and making plays.
Yeah, and this wouldn't be, everyone's confident of Malcolm Rodriguez out at he was Oklahoma State and then got drafted by the Lions and came in, and both those undersized linebacker types. I don't really know if Ivan necessarily has the instincts that Malcolm had coming out. That was kind of his big thing. But I think Ivan's probably a little bit more disruptive than Malcolm Rodriguez was, but playing in different conferences and such. However, yeah, again, I'll go back to it again. This is a guy the Colts could take, round 5 or 6 in special teams. And he'll be a day one special teams contributor, and it'll be such a great addition to the special teams unit.
Yeah, I agree. So let's look at how disruptive he is here on this next play. We were able to sort through, find this one out, and this is a really good example of kind of what he can bring you, and kind of what you were saying about how he's constantly just attacking and finds himself around the ball. he kind of ragdolls that guy.
Yeah, he just slips him right by. He kind of uses his leverage again to his advantage.
Yeah, that's just great stuff there. And I mean, people will talk about the size, but I mean, there's so many. I mean, plays like that can flip a game. That can, bring momentum. Whether you believe in momentum or not. I mean, I certainly do. I think it's a real thing. And he just makes so many momentum changing plays where, they need a play and he's there and he gets it for them. And it can change the whole script, it can flip the script of how a game can end.
Yeah, exactly. And, if he could do that again on like punt, punt block goes and did what exactly EJ Speed did in the Patriots game, that would be something that would be, something that would be great, and just changes again, and like you said, the momentum of the game.
Yeah, I agree. So now we will get into a guy that a lot of Indiana people are very well aware of, and I'm sure he will be on a lot of people's radars as well. And that's Cam Jones out of the University of Indiana, IU, and he's been another popular pick on Colts Twitter for the team to select there on day 3. So I'm just curious to see how you view Cam Jones and if you think it's more of a an Indiana home like homer type of a thing, or if you think there's actually something there with him.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that'll stick out to Chris Ballard and really any team that looks at Cam Jones is the fact that he's a 3-time team captain. Anytime that you can be a team captain from the time you're a sophomore all the way up through the time you're a senior, that's something that'll easily, be a big green flag as a positive for him. Again, just because he has played a lot of ball, he does a really good job of like play recognition and being able to identify and play with proper leverage, especially when he's pursuing ball carriers down the field. So just a lot of the typical things you'll see with linebackers that have played a long time. They kind of know what's coming almost before the plays even set up, just based off of formations. Really, the thing to his detriment and the thing that'll keep Cam Jones probably from being a top 100 pick, and especially even later, he'll probably go later day 3, is just that he didn't test very well at the NFL Combine. But again, I think this is a player that Chris Ballard will love. And I think the reason we chose all of these guys just because they all seem very Colt-esque, just in the way they draft. And the Colts tend to take day 3 linebackers. And so it makes sense for a lot of these guys that they could end up being Indianapolis come next Saturday.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there is a little bit as well of oomph to him in the run game. He's another guy that looks to create, very violent collisions, and he's just always seems to be, ready to lay a hit on guys. And whether, he might not have the athleticism that the other guys we've mentioned have, especially the first couple of guys, he doesn't have that fast, twitchy ability that they do. He does seem to play really well around the line of scrimmage.
Yeah. I think another thing that he does really well is, like I said, he does a great job of just kind of playing with a good level of aggression everywhere he goes. He laid some really big hits on film. So you love to see that. And then he does it, like I said, a great job additionally. When a running back, he's looking at cutback lanes, especially in that wide zone type of scheme. He knows where that running back's looking to cut back. And then he goes and finishes the play a lot of times. So again, really just the one thing that you want to see him, maybe if he could, find a way to, get a little bit better in the speed department. And then just sometimes fitting the run a little bit better. There are times where he makes mistakes, but every linebacker does that. So it's not a huge issue. And I don't know if he'll ever be a full-time stack linebacker in the NFL just because of those athletic detriments. But he has really good instincts, and that's something that I think will, allow him to at least, get the opportunity to play linebacker in the NFL for a team full-time.
Yeah, and he's definitely, day one a special teams guy as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can throw him out there, and he can really give you something good. So let's get into one of those big hits here from Cam Jones out of Indiana. This is always a fun one as well. So we can watch and see just how he just absolutely annihilates this running back. Great job filling the hole there, and that's a really good tackle as well. I mean, he just kind of moves his head out of the way and just gets low, and low man wins.
Yeah, exactly. And we see him kind of going with the flow there, kind of stalking the running back. And then he identifies where the hole is, and boom, the number 11, I can't tell if that's a tight end. It looks like he's a fullback / H-back. Doesn't even have the chance to go get hands on him just because, he explodes to the hole. And if he's able to do that, it's not going to matter what his 40 time is. Exactly. Because he's moving fast enough to just take running backs out and just stop them right there in their tracks. So if he's going to come with some hitting power, like I said, it's not going to matter whether he runs a 4.6 or a 4.4.
Yeah, exactly. So now let's get into our last linebacker that we will cover here, and that is DeMarvion Overshawn. I don't know. You might know how to say it better than I do. I'm butchering names today.
Yeah, I think it's just Overshot. I'm not 100% sure either. I don't know if you pronounce the N there at the end. I haven't heard his name pronounced in a while, actually, so I actually can't recall. But yeah, I mean, some of these names are. Anytime you do the NFL draft, there will always be some different names. So I don't blame you at all for that.
Yeah, and so if you didn't, this is a guy out of Texas, University of Texas down there. And he is a guy, he does have great length, great size, a little bit light as well, but he is 6'2" and a half. Does have a pretty nice wingspan as well. So that's something, as we know, the Colts love to look for in their linebackers is that height and that wingspan.
Yeah, and again, this is another safety turn linebacker, so we try to put on a little bit more weight. This is probably the guy out of all of the guys that we've highlighted so far that's going to go the highest. I think he's a potential day 2 pick, probably round 3.
Yeah.
But he could be pushed up just due to the lack of elite linebackers in this class. Really showed a lot of improvement between 2 years ago and this year. Just learning the position again. It is a little bit different. Your run fits from when you're playing safety to where you're playing linebacker. A lot of times, actually, you're trying to fill the hole a different way, make the linebacker right. So, switching that can be a little bit different. But, since he's newer-ish to the position, he's still, got a lot of strides he can make. Very athletic guy. So, like all these guys, and, again, probably will be a special teams player day 1.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of upside there as well to be one of those really kind of like those sub package, like rushed coverage linebackers as well that you can throw in on third and fourth downs. And he can really give you something in that coverage due to that experience at safety.
Yeah, and really like the way that he attacked blitzes too when his number was called. Did a very good job, kind of avoiding extra blockers and then creating havoc in the backfield.
Yeah, I agree. So let's get into some film here on him. And this one really kind of shows what you were saying is, that blitzing and that ability to, really kind of attack the backfield here. So let's go ahead and get this in here. Go ahead and see if this works here.
Yeah, and that play right there, you just kind of see patience there on his part. He's kind of waiting for the running back to declare. Again, we're talking about this kind of wide zone scheme. And then once he sees the hole, it's just he attacks it and boom, you see that athleticism there. Running back doesn't really even see him coming. He's not able to, kind of plant and get up in the hole because he's still kind of going laterally. And, DeMarion is coming down and just ready to lay the boom. So, just a good read there from the linebacker.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of really good stuff there. And like I said, I think at his best, he could really be like that will linebacker that you can drop down in coverage. You can even use him kind of as like a situational pass rusher as well. So I mean, there's just a lot to like about him, and that's probably why he's going to go a little bit further ahead of the other guys we've talked about today.
Yeah, exactly. And I think teams will see a lot of upside in his game.
Yeah, I agree. So let's get into our next position here that covers the linebackers. But before we do hop into the running backs, if there was one guy that we talked about or that we haven't talked about that you would love to see the Colts target at the linebacker position, who you picking?
Dorian Williams out of Tulane. I think ever since I kind of heard his measurables, kind of heard Dane Brugler talk about him, watched him myself, I kind of saw a guy that reminded me a little bit, not necessarily the same type of prospect or level of prospect that Darius Leonard was, or Shaquille Leonard. Again, he was Darius Leonard when he came out.
There you go.
Now he's Shaquille Leonard. But, same type of player, very long, undersized, his arms, again, very long arms. Kind of that length to disrupt things in zone is something, and then, just instinctual player. So I think that's going to be somebody that the Colts should really look at and probably, have a good chance of taking on day 3.
Yeah, I agree. And what really kind of made me solidify on him was just what he did at the pro day. And he was just fantastic, whether it was in coverage on running backs, whether it was, him lining up with tight ends and the one-on-one drills. He really played well in coverage. And then once they kind of got into the game, and especially like the pass rush drills and stuff like that, where he was attacking the running backs and pass protection, he just bullied a lot of people, and he really used that speed and that explosiveness, really exploited a lot of people. So I fell in love with him at the Senior Bowl. He was, to me, the best linebacker there all week long in practices. And just really solidified how I felt about him. And I would love to see the Colts go with him out of Tulane.
Yeah, I would be ecstatic if they were to get that pick on day 3.
Yeah, absolutely. So now let's get into the running backs. And this is a position that, not a lot of people think the Colts really need just because obviously they have Jonathan Taylor, who is one of the best backs in the league, but Zach Moss as well performed really great there towards the end stretch after Jonathan Taylor was held out. He played really good football for them. And uh, saying that, it's just there still seems to be a lack of diversity in that running back room, especially with Naheem Hines not being there now, getting moved for Zach Moss. Uh, Jonathan Taylor, Zach Moss, both are kind of like more bruisers in the run game. You're not going to see them catch, 50, 60 passes. So, is this a position of need that you think the Colts should target in the draft, or should they just kind of stand pat?
Yeah, this is a position that I think the Colts may address in the draft, and again, it'll probably be on day three, unless they decide to pick up a guy that a lot of people probably haven't heard of, just kind of a back to throw on the practice squad. They'll probably sign a few guys as UDFA's as well, kind of to be that third back, or somebody that they believe could compete to kind of be that change of pace two back and compete with Zach Moss for that. There's a few guys that we're going to actually talk about that I think would fit really well in that situation and have kind of already actually been used to playing that kind of second fiddle to a really explosive, good running back. So, yeah, I definitely think this is a position that may surprise people that the Colts look at maybe even a little bit earlier than expected, maybe round 4 or 5.
Yeah, and what I love about this running back class too is just how diverse it is. There's just, you don't necessarily have that after Bijan Robinson and maybe one other guy. It's just it does seem to be very deep, and there's just so many different flavors of guys. You could have the bruisers, which is, some guys that we'll talk about, but you can also have your pass catchers, your third down change of pace guys. It really does just depend on what really you're looking for, and there's a lot of really good options in this class for that.
Yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs is one of those guys after Bijan Robinson will probably be the second running back off the board, who will probably go pretty high. And then you guys got guys like Devon A-Chain, who we don't really know where he's going to go just because he's such a different guy, very small, but also incredibly quick. And then guys like Zach Charbonnet and Tank Bigsby, who could go a little bit higher. Just kind of depends on where teams see them. But yeah, there's a lot of good day two running backs. But there's also, as we're going to see some guys that could go on day three that could be meaningful contributors. And we see that every single year in the NFL draft, running backs, day three picks that come in and, they get the job done. That
Or
maybe,
undrafted, even
yeah,
undrafted.
exactly. You think of James Robinson now for the Jets.
Philip Lindsay was a guy as well.
Illinois State. So, there's just, it's one of those positions where you can get close to the same level of production that you get with different guys from, spending considerably less capital on it. So that's why I think, there's always worth taking a shot, especially on day three.
Yeah, and when it comes to this running back room too, I think you made a really good quote whenever we were doing our wide receivers room, or wide receiver breakdown. Is you said you want to build your wide receiver room like you build a basketball team. You don't want 5 centers. You don't want 5 point guards. You want to have a diverse skill set. And I think that applies with the running back room as well. And I think that was a great quote for people to utilize that, hey, we might not have 2 or 3 Jonathan Taylors, but each guy can play a different role. And, obviously for me, I want Jonathan Taylor on the field as much as possible just because of how dynamic he is and how much of a game changer he is at that position. But there are those times when, you need other guys that are able to step up and spell him, and to have a guy like Zach Moss and maybe one of these other guys we'll talk about to kind of switch and share, roles in that. I think it could be a very beneficial running back room.
Yeah, yeah. And I just can't wait to get into some of these guys and kind of just discuss how they could fit with the Colts behind Jonathan Taylor and really in that kind of competing with Zach Moss for 2A, 2B.
Yeah. So I think that was your way of telling me to hurry up and get to the players. So I will oblige. We'll get to the guys here now. And I'm going to start off with one of my favorite running backs in this entire class, a guy that I have circled for the Colts that I would just absolutely be over the moon if they drafted this guy. And that is running back Tajay Spears, a guy that we got to see at the Senior Bowl. And just like his Tulane teammate Dorian Williams we talked about, this was a guy that just absolutely put it on so many guys, especially in the passing game drills. whenever they were having to cover him one-on-one, nobody could touch this guy. And it was just extremely impressive. I believe there's a clip out there. I might even pull it up and show it on Twitter, or I might even show it here. But it was just unbelievable. Just the way he toyed with guys in his route running. And he's also a guy that can run between the tackles, and that's what we're going to see here. But I'm curious to see what you think about Tajay Spears.
Yeah, this is a guy who averaged 7 yards per carry during his two-lane career, which is very crazy considering that, you're good in the NFL if you're above like 3.5, 3.6, 3.7, that kind of range. That's pretty good. So, that's incredible for somebody who played. He was obviously, way above his weight class there, kind of playing with guys that, weren't as talented as him. But what I love to see from Tajay Spears is just his work in the second level. Does a very good job. I think he has really good patience. Maybe not the best, I guess you could call it creativity. Doesn't freelance as much as maybe some other guys, but I think that, the way he gets it done, kind of running defenders into blockers and just kind of setting things up is something that he excels in.
Yeah, and I think too in the running game, something that really helps him at that second level, and even whenever he's trying to get through the running lanes and all that traffic there along the offensive line, is just the change of direction he has and his ability to see and set up those blocks, and just really quick guy that can really just change direction at the drop of a dime and be gone.
Yeah, I really enjoyed watching him just on film, making guys miss. Again, just setting up his run so that his blockers can get in the way, and then he's able to burst through the second level and into the third level. And then, the one thing that I would just want to watch out for is just to see if he gets any red flags on his medical history. He has had a few significant knee injuries,
Two torn ACLs, I believe.
Yeah. So that's one thing, especially when you're a running back and you're doing all that cutting that you got to watch out for. But, he obviously was very explosive, very good last year. So maybe if, those ACLs can hold up, this is a guy who would love to be a kind of a different kind of back that the Colts could bring in and after Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, and we've seen this even happen even to a guy, I mean, maybe not to the extent of Frank Gore, just because he dealt with so many injuries in college, and that's really why he dropped. And then he gets to the NFL, and the guy's just like Iron Man. I mean, he can't be hurt or touched, so that's kind of what you hope for with a guy like Tajay Spears, that he does have that kind of career. But let's get into a few different plays here. So this is 3 different runs that I think showcases his ability to make guys miss, and in that change of direction, and really his ability to navigate all that traffic. And I'm really excited to show some of these plays here, because I absolutely love this guy. So he is number 22, lined up in the backfield. You can just see how quick he is just immediately. And this is against USC too. So this isn't, let's see here. And you can really just kind of see.
Yeah. One of the things you just note is kind of his vision there. That second clip against UCF kind of takes the ball all the way across the field. He doesn't see something that he likes over there. So he kind of just, he starts off one direction, kind of goes the other direction. And then again, you can see him waiting for that tight end to come across and block number 3 there. Doesn't try to get ahead of himself. He allows his blocks to set up, kind of like I pointed out a few times. So this is a guy that knows what he's doing, knows what he's seeing, has played the position for a while. And then he has the foot speed and the quickness to finish off runs and kind of make guys miss, as he gets into the second
Speaking
level.
of making guys miss, this next play is really some special stuff. And we actually see him against Ivan Pace Jr., a guy that we just talked about in the linebacker room against Cincinnati. And just watch the way that guys just tend to bounce off of him here.
Yeah, so just cut. Yeah, I mean, he's throwing guys by. Again, something you love to see against, another NFL prospect. So, just very special change of direction ability here from Tajay Spears.
Absolutely. And before we do get on to our next guy, I do want to show the play at the Senior Bowl that, I mean, everybody was talking about this all week long, and it was just so fun to watch. And I'm gonna pull that up here as soon as I get it.
Yeah. So I think Tajay Spears, there's a lot of different directions where he could be drafted. I think every team could use a back like Tajay Spears. I think, he could go maybe even late day 2. It's really going to come down to those medicals. The teams, they invite him to their top 30 picks or their top 30 prospect list, and they kind of go over his medicals again. Same thing at the combine, same thing at his pro day. And yeah, that'll kind of determine his draft stock all the way.
Yeah, so this is the play at the Senior Bowl that had everybody buzzing. And this was just in the passing game, the route running drills with the running backs and linebackers. And you can really just see him watch this little dip under there. I mean, he just
yeah.
Everybody was on their feet after that one.
Yeah, a little reverse whip route there. You don't have really many worries about the knee after you see something like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's just
that Pittsburgh linebacker, possibly Servosi Dennis, not 100% sure, but just kind of gets his head turned looking for the ball, thinks he's got him covered, and then he's gone, kind of like a disappearing act, a magician, little Houdini act there from Tajay Spears.
Yeah, love it. So let's get into some of the other guys now. I've gushed enough over Tajay, but there are some other guys that are friends of the show, actually. If you haven't seen the interview with either one of these guys on the Blue Stable, make sure to go look at those. Some great conversations we had when we were able to sit down with the next couple of guys. But the first one I'm going to pull up here is Eric Gray out of Oklahoma, just an absolute beast of a running back. I can't say enough great things about him as well. Like I said, if you haven't watched that interview that we had with him, go ahead and check that out. It is on the channel. But I'm curious to see what you think of Eric Gray.
Yeah, I think this is kind of one of those guys that once he knows where the hole is, he's going to hit it really hard. Kind of that one cut, and then he just generates a lot of explosion out of that cut. And then once he sees it, it's just, go. He sees those blocks forming, and then he's just explosive, instant acceleration kind of through the hole there. I like that he also has the ability to catch passes. I thought he displayed really good hands throughout all of his film. So just, both of those things. And then, I think he's also extremely elusive. He makes guys miss a lot on film. And that's something you're always looking for because, the more you can make guys miss, the better, and you'll see more of the field. And when you got soft hands and you're catching everything and making guys miss, there's always a big play waiting to happen. So that's kind of the same thing we saw with Nyheim Hines, just how shifty he was.
Yeah, and he doesn't have like the home run speed that some of these guys do. So he doesn't have that top end speed, but he is very explosive through the holes. I think he has great vision. And I think, he's just one of those guys that you can place in your running back room and just give him the ball, and the contact balance he possesses, the elusiveness he possesses, like you said, the ability to catch the ball out of the backfield and down the field, even over linebackers and safeties. He's a guy that will go up and high point the ball as well. So he does a lot of really great things. And so we can get into some of those, and you can really kind of see that elusiveness and that contact balance here on this next play.
Also not somebody that's necessarily going to run over too many defenders.
Yeah.
That's not his game. But that, when we're talking about guys like Nyheim Hines kind of at that size, that's never going to be their game. But as you can see here, just the immediate, elusiveness. He makes a guy miss that just kind of bursts through the hole that's there. So anytime you can do that, like that first guy miss, you're going to, average positive yardage, and that's going to keep you on the field.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure there at the end, that guy's probably going to be in a walking boot.
Yeah, that ankle is gone. He should have done a Tyronn Lue step, or Allen Iverson over Tyronn Lue step over, I should say, after that one.
But this is another guy I think has a lot of really cool stuff to his game, and he can affect a game in multiple ways, and just another kind of change of pace guy that can come in and give you great production.
Yeah, I agree. Kind of would take that kind of scat back maybe a little bit. Maybe not quite level of that where he's going to be always in on third downs. I think you could run him out there, for more than that. But just kind of the same, size-wise, and that he does have the ability to catch the ball out of the backfield.
Yeah, and so let's get into another guy, another friend of the show. I know Mike, if Mike is watching, he's going to love this next guy because it is a TCU guy, and he is a little bit different from the other two guys we just talked about, but He is a guy very similar. I think him and Jonathan Taylor would form just an absolutely punishing duo, and that's Kendre Miller out of TCU. I mean, this guy punishes people. He looks for contact. He runs guys over. He's especially deadly in the red zone is where he really shines, and the contact balance that he has to just have guys bounce off of him consistently. I think it's really awesome stuff.
Yeah, yeah, he is a big guy. One thing I'd love to see him do is just run with consistent pad level. I do think he's a really good finisher though. Like you kind of alluded to, he looks to bury people. When he's going through there, especially on third down, he knows he needs to get that extra yard. That's something I really appreciated in his game. Just a consistently productive guy there at TCU, and I liked his vision as well. And so for a guy that's that big, he also displayed pretty good agility in the open field. And just, again, for somebody who is so big and, you kind of think you're just going to be getting kind of a bruiser, I liked the way he was able to maintain space away from defenders and make guys miss.
Yeah, and that was something that we actually asked him on the show. We asked him, what it would be like playing with Jonathan Taylor, and one of his answers, or something similar. I don't have it verbatim, but he said, with Jonathan Taylor on the field, you're always, he's a guy that also looks to punish people and punish safeties and linebackers and just run guys over as well as he can make them miss. And I think Kendre is very similar to that. And he said, when JT comes off the field and I come on the field, you have these guys that thinking they're going to get a break and they're going to get a, breath of chance to catch their breath. And he's like, and I'm not going to give them that. He's like, because they're just going to get punished just that much more. And so you rotate those two guys along with Zach Moss, and it's just consistent punishment for linebackers and safeties.
Yeah, it would be like you were just, constantly having a big running back in there, a la Derrick Henry, just kind of the whole game. It's like if Derrick Henry rotated out with Bo Scarborough, kind of that Alabama backfield from a few years ago, just big guys that were constantly delivering the blow. Not that those guys are necessarily that big, but just kind of that envisioning, three guys that'll lower their shoulder, hit you, and make you sore after the game.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get into a few different plays with Kendre Miller. And if you haven't, once again, same with Eric Gray, if you haven't went ahead and checked out that video and the interview we did with Kendre, make sure to go check that out on the YouTube channel. It was some great stuff, and he's a very entertaining guy, really great to talk to. You can really see that contact balance here as well.
Yeah, he gets tripped up there, is able to, kind of stumble, recover there a little bit, put the hand down. Yeah, again, as you kind of said, showing good contact balance, and then just being able to kind of fit through that hole, kind of shimmy through and finish the run there for a touchdown. First guy's rarely going to bring him down. You see arm tackles don't work. Takes 2 or 3 guys to bring him to the turf.
Yeah, and I just love his ability, and yeah, there's just more contact balance. I mean, it's just incredible the way that he just has guys bounce off of him, and he's able to stay upright. And like I said, his ability to finish in the red zone, I think, is something that stands out with him.
Yeah, and again, just making third level guys miss. That's not easy for safeties. I'll continue to say that as a safety, but just the fact that he's able to still they're the last line of defense. They have to do everything they can to make the tackle, and he's still just kind of making them miss all the time, stiff arming him. He's a strong guy. He's hard to bring down.
I agree. So, all right. So let's get in now to a little bit of a different flavor once again of some of the guys we're going to talk about. So we kind of went with the heavy hitter here. So now let's get into another guy that I think is really underrated in this class, and I really enjoyed watching him down at Texas, and that's Roschon Johnson. And I think this guy compares like very similarly, maybe not necessarily to like Alvin Kamara as much, especially with like Jahmyr Gibbs, like he's like an Alvin Kamara clone. But I do think this guy does have kind of like a similar way about him with the way he's able to catch the ball out of the backfield and really play in that run game.
Yeah, and so this was the guy I was referencing earlier when I was talking about kind of he's always played second fiddle to Bijan Robinson there. So if he came to the Colts, he would kind of be doing that same thing with Jonathan Taylor. He also has a lot of special teams experience, so that's another bonus and another thing that Chris Ballard would look for on day 3. I think he's just a very physical runner. He breaks tackles all the time. And then one thing that I also think is very important is the ball security that he possesses. Noted that he only has one career fumble. So that's huge, obviously, because that's the one thing you can't do when you're a ball carrier, when you're a running back. That's how you get, cut immediately type of thing. If you fumble a few times, ball security is number one. Again, not a guy that's going to, break off a lot of home run hitters, but somebody you can bring in, say, on 3rd and 1, and he's probably going to get that extra yard just because of the toughness he displays and kind of he's more of a bruising back.
Yeah. Yeah, but I do like whenever I watched him though, I always thought his hands were very underrated as well. I think
Oh, yeah,
that's
he
just
can definitely do that too.
yeah, and it's just something that they didn't necessarily like showcase a lot at Texas, but I do think he does possess those soft hands, and he's a guy that was at the Senior Bowl as well, and he barely played because I believe he did suffer a hand injury while he was there, and so he kind of set the rest of the week out. But he did participate in the interviews; he was still around, and that just kind of really showed me what kind of guy and what kind of player he is. That he wanted to be there for the other guys that were going to be there, even though he wasn't.
Yeah, yeah, and again, I think another thing you could do with him is just scheme up. Hey, it's 3rd and short. Everyone thinks we're going to run the ball. Maybe have him and Jonathan Taylor in a split backfield, and then you throw him a swing route, and then say, hey, DBs, cornerbacks, nickel backs, please go tackle this very large man who is very good at running over you, and he also will catch the ball and get him downhill a little bit and let him go pick up that yard. So that's something that I think the Colts could implement, or really whatever team he goes to. I just would be very excited for his game if he were to go to Indianapolis.
Yeah, I agree. So let's get into some of those bruising runs that he does possess here. We can really see how he finishes through contact here, especially down in the red zone.
Yeah. Immediately, yeah, just there finishing, making sure he's getting the 6. And a guy showing kind of that athleticism that people don't really give him credit for. He's more just, they're saying he's just this downhill guy. Well, as you can see, he's obviously making that first defender miss, and then second guy is going pretty high, and he still just jumps over him. So, Bijan Robinson getting all the love down there at Texas, but Roschon Johnson, again, is not too bad himself.
No, and like I said, if he wasn't necessarily outshined by the guy that Bijan Robinson is, obviously just an absolutely special running back. I just think there is a lot of his game that is still really untapped and what he can really kind of bring to the table.
Mm-hmm. And we don't really know what it is because he really wasn't given the opportunity at Texas.
Right. So let's now get into our last running back before we do end up getting out of here. And this is a guy that, once again, like I wasn't necessarily high on, but the more I watched him, the more I really did enjoy him. And that is Zach Evans. And he's a guy played SEC ball. Obviously, whenever you're a running back in the SEC, you're used to those big linebackers, those big defensive linemen. And that's just something that really translates to the league a lot. But I'm curious to see kind of where you think Zach Evans does end up, in this class of running backs.
Yeah, so this is a guy I think could end up getting pushed up a little bit just because kind of his pedigree. We saw him a few years ago as one of the top recruits in high school, and then he transferred a few times. Finally found his home there at Ole Miss and did pretty well. Averaged roughly 7 yards a carry. Again, that's really hard to do, especially in the SEC. Has the top end explosiveness and kind of the the size to be a back in the NFL that ends up commanding most of the carries in an offense. However, the real question for me is, can he stay healthy? We saw time and time again Evans go down with injuries. So for me, it's really going to be, this guy has everything that he needs to be a guy that's commanding 60 to 65%. Maybe not that number one guy that's getting all of the carries in an offense, kind of that bell cow, but somebody who can get most of the carries in an offense and not necessarily even make it a running back room by committee.
Yeah, and he was a guy, I believe he also played for TCU, so he did end up transferring as well. And so him and Kendre Miller, they did play together, and I believe once he transferred out, he went to Ole Miss, so he transferred from TCU to Ole Miss,
Mhm.
and that really kind of opened the door for Kendre Miller there to take over that spot and have the year that he had. But Zach Evans just he had a really great last year, and he's another guy that's just he does look to punish people in the run game as well.
Mhm.
He really lays some pretty heavy hits.
Mhm.
So let's get in here and you can kind of see, especially on this play, just right off the bat, you can really kind of see the way he's able to deliver this hit, and he really just kind of runs over guys.
Almost surprised himself there that he was able to stay up. Thought he's probably actually looking to go out of bounds there.
Mhm.
Then you can see he kind of surprised himself and gets a few more extra run yards there. And yeah, just again, he has that size where it takes a few guys to bring him down. Love to see the vision here where he just takes the ball, makes a few cutbacks, sees the backside open up there on that play, and then get through to the second level.
Yeah, and yeah, that's great finish there for the touchdown on that play.
Yes. Yeah, he's just bowling guys over. Something that you just love to see. Another guy that would fit well, kind of with that Kendra Miller esque, running guys over, punishing, just like the other two guys that the Colts already have in the running back room.
Yeah. Uh, so where would you say Kendre Miller would likely fall in this draft? You think he's more of a third round guy, more of a fourth round guy?
Yeah, I would say somewhere in that range, 3, 4, 5. One of those rounds. I don't know necessarily. I think there will probably be some guys that go ahead of him that push him down to day 3. But because of his size, I'll be interested to see if he or Roshan Johnson go first. I think those are two pretty similar backs that do a little bit of the same thing, as you would say, a little bit of the same flavor. So just to see what teams like a little bit more between those two guys. But yeah, those are two guys that I think kind of can deliver the same type of thing.
Yeah. All right. So before we end it, last question, similar to the linebacker question. If you could choose one of these guys for the Indianapolis Colts to draft, who are you taking?
Yeah, I would love to see, and I kind of alluded to it earlier, Roshan Johnson. That's just my personal favorite. I think he does a great job catching the ball out of the backfield. And I think he's just would be a great kind of combo with Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, so mine is Tajay Spears. I just like I said, I fell in love with this guy, and nobody could cover him down in Mobile. And I just think the home run speed he possesses, the vision, the athleticism. If you are clearing him medically, which is going to be one of the bigger parts of his game. If you clear him medically and he seems to be good to go, which all indications are he is, then I just think there's a lot of really great upside. And I think the pairing of him, Zach Moss, and Jonathan Taylor could be a really special running back room and could give you all different types of guys that can hit you in multiple ways.
Yeah, I think that would also be another really exciting pairing and something I would love to see in Indy as well.
Yeah, so we've got just one question here from a listener. It looks like Anthony. He asked, "Have y'all done one on cornerbacks and safeties yet?" And the answer is yes and no. So we did do the cornerbacks a couple episodes ago. You can find that live either on the YouTube channel under the live tab, or you can go on the Blue Stables Twitter as well and kind of scroll down, and all the videos are available on there as well. We do have safeties coming up on Friday. We will be doing our safeties and tight ends, and that will end it for us. So thank you guys so much. If you do enjoy this type of content, if you love listening to Jack talk ball, make sure to go ahead, like, subscribe, give him a follow as well on Twitter. A lot of great draft stuff coming out of the Blue Stable, which he will uh, definitely be a big part of. And I believe later this month, or not month, but later this week, if you haven't, I don't think there's been a post on it yet, but I'll break the news here. So my mock draft version 1.0 for the Indianapolis Colts, a full 7 round mock, is going to be released later this week. So make sure you guys are tuned into the Blue Stable for that. I'm finally gonna, got through everybody. We're sitting here doing this draft show, and now it's time for me to finally release my mock. I will do 2 of them. I will do one releasing this week, and my final version on who I think the Colts will take will be released on either the day before or the day of the NFL draft. So, really excited to get through those. But once again, man, thank you for so much. that you have done for this episode and for all the other episodes. I think you do a fantastic job. I think you deserve to be highlighted way more than myself. So I
Oh,
really appreciate it, man.
Oh, Landon, again, thank you so much. I think it's a little bit too much. I don't know about that. I think you do a great job. You do just as much as I do, studying these prospects, breaking down their film. So again, you deserve all the praise in the world, and I think you do a great job as well. I'm just here to kind of enhance whatever kind of the show. So
Well, you definitely do a great job of that. So thank you guys so much once again. And we will be seeing you on Friday for the tight ends and safeties. And just make sure to stay tuned.